And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to another reasonably fine art talk with your friend, Charlie Hunter. As America slowly turns into some new, somewhat unrecognizable nation, we're still going to continue reasonably fine art talks, even as we hurtle into the void. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. And it is a delight today to have with us one of my favorite human beings and a wonderful, wonderful painter who I've known for years through Putney Painters, Ms. Kathy Anderson. Hi there, Kathy.
Hey, Charlie. I'm so happy to be here because I've been so strung out and now I'm just happy.
Right. Well, yeah, for those of you who know, Kathy and I are the kind of the part of the liberal wing of the Putney Painters. Not that there was much of a conservative wing, though there's one or two of them, but we aren't going to do politics because the great thing about art is it can draw us together and provide a path for reconciliation. Mm-hmm. So, Kathy Anderson, right, shock collar. Kathy Anderson, how did you, for those of you who may not know, Kathy and I, as being part of Putney Painters, we both studied, or we were honored to be painting with Richard Schmid for years. And, I take certain lessons from Richard. You take certain lessons from Richard. And I see you as the person carrying forth Richard's legacy of the incredible floral work. How did your artistic path develop? Why do you love to paint what you love? And how do we tell us about what makes Kathy Anderson Kathy Anderson?
Oh, brother. That's a big one. Yeah, well, I'm just going to say about Richard. The biggest thing I learned from Richard is that it doesn't matter what you paint at all, as long as it connects with you and you love it. And you show the world how much you love whatever it is you paint. Right. The subject means absolutely nothing, because I saw Richard and Charlie did too paint things that you would say, what the heck has he got there? That ugly little sugar bowl with some stupid doll sitting in it, right? With this horrible backdrop in there, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what the heck he sees, but that's the main thing, especially when I teach, that I really try to impart upon people. You have to be, or at least for me, I have to be passionate about whatever it is I'm going to paint. And being a lifelong gardener and lover of nature and right. Cats and all animals, there's never a time that I don't know what to paint. Ever. Never, never, never.
So did you grow up, where'd you grow up first?
On Long Island, and my mom was a gardener.
Okay. So, and have you done art your entire life? Is that all?
Yeah, dabbled. I'm not, every artist says, oh, when I was 2, I had no friends. I just wanted to draw. And, but, no. I did art, little stupid things, like not listening in class and just playing with little dumb things in my desk. And,
right.
But yes, did I do art my whole life? There was some form of art always.
Right. And I mean, we were talking before we went live here. I mean, you've got quite a roster of galleries. When did this become your profession?
I would say when my older son was in high school and I started painting backdrops for the show, for the plays, because he was always into theater. And I morphed into, actually, while my kids were little, I used to do outdoor shows, painting watercolors, birds, animals. I did the outdoor shows where you stand out there when it's 100 degrees and everybody just walks right past you and goes home,
right.
But I went from that to a mural business where I worked for about 7 years. And during that time, I started working in oils instead of watercolors. And then I had the remarkable good luck to meet Richard Schmid, who changed my life at an outdoor show actually that he used to do when he lived in Sherman, Connecticut for a while and used to do an outdoor show there. And he actually bought one of my paintings. And I met him the following year, and I can say that he changed my life absolutely 100%.
Huh. And so when did you start showing at the galleries? About what year would that have been?
The kind of galleries I'm in now, probably in the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years, maybe more than that.
So you and I turned pro at about the same time then. So that Putney Painters show at Legacy Gallery in 2012 or 2014.
Yes.
That was also a big step forward for you as well. Huh.
It was, and it's interesting because that's one of the things that, when we say to take a risk, for example. I remember when that show was about to happen and they put an email came out, or however we communicated back then. Came out, some pigeon flying over our head. They came out and asked who would like to teach at that venue many years ago. I had never really taught before. And I just said, I will. I'll do it.
Really?
Yeah. So, I like to never say no to things and then figure out how to do it later.
Yeah, you've just given two great bits of advice so far. One is that paint something that you love. I mean, because that is absolutely true. I mean, it's our portal into the shapes and colors and values and edges. I mean, it's just the means into that essentially abstract world. And the second thing is to walk through any doors that are presented to you and not say, oh, I'm not good enough to do that.
Not ready, or I'm not right. Yeah. Exactly. I just want to add to your first point. I can't even imagine painting or drawing or the things that you pick out, the things that interest you, except your landscapes and your beautiful tonal landscape. But when I see your buildings make me weep. They're so beautiful. But for me, I do them. They are in some of my paintings, but like street scenes and I look at my good friend Michelle Byrne, her cafes and street scenes. They're magnificent.
Right.
I would shoot myself before I'd want to paint something like that. It's like,
With that, let's get into the realm of your art, because I have this very similar reaction. I love looking at your florals because then I don't have to paint them. That's how I feel about them. So this is a very large painting. What year was this one? Teton.
Oh, I think this painting is about it's probably about 4 or 5 years old, and it was just in my solo show in New York, and it's really big, 34 by 50.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a studio piece, but I painted plein air at Teton National Park many times with the Rocky Mountain Plein Air Painters, and painted many small paintings, which that's one of the things I always said, one of the things that Richard always imparted, paint from life. I'm not sure that you could paint a painting like this from a photo if you've never been out in the woods.
Right. So for you, the plein air practice, what you do, either alla prima or plein air, but direct painting, that informs your studio practice. Like, for instance, would any of those trees be directly taken from any of your plein air work, or is it just that you were working from reference photographs, but you knew how the light really hits it from having been there and painted plein air?
That painting is all from photographs, but it's all from different photographs. One tree here, one tree there. I've never been successful at painting large paintings from using my plein air as a reference. I might lie sometimes and say I do that, but it's not usually very successful, just because for me, the energy of being out there, I can't seem to translate it once I'm in the studio. I could do it from a photo, and my what's in my head and my memories of being there. But when I try to replicate one of my plein air paintings, I'm like, what am I doing this for?
Interesting. Interesting. Now, those of you out there in internet land, if you've got any questions for Kathy, put them in the comments. I'm monitoring the comments that I can see, and I can put them up on the screen if you've got any specific questions. Now, so this one is both the trees. I mean, it's really there's three subjects in this. There are the trees. There is the charismatic megafauna in the middle background, which is the suspicious-looking deer staring at you, and then there are the flowers in the foreground. And talk a little about compositionally. It to me is very interesting in that you have this almost filigree in the foreground that the viewer then travels over, and there's a very definite kind of arrow V shape pointing to the charismatic megafauna in that middle background. This feels very carefully constructed, but with a barrier, that floral barrier in the foreground. What were you thinking about as you were doing this?
Sure the heck wasn't thinking all that you're thinking about, that's for sure. However, the funny part about this painting, well, first of all, the deer, which is, I think it was a mule deer that was a baby, had a mother in this painting, and she's gone.
Nice.
I took her out a couple of years ago because for some reason I didn't like the way it was working with her in there. But the trees were a couple of the photographs for the trees. The deer, and by the way, while I was painting there, I did see a herd of deer walk by. So I'm really, when I paint animals, I try to be authentic. If it's something I really saw, I wouldn't put it's funny. I was just going to say I wouldn't put a giraffe in there because I didn't see a giraffe, but I did see a giraffe last year when I went to Africa.
But you didn't see a giraffe in the Teton.
I didn't see a giraffe in the Tetons that I can remember. Maybe after a glass of wine.
All right.
But yes, that is exactly what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of. I always think about movement in the painting. People always say, "Well, how do you decide your focal point? Where do you put your focal point?" I never think about a focal point. I never really do. I wind up with one, I hope, right. But I never think about that. I always think about moving you around the painting. So,
all right. Well, let's. This is moving into the stuff I think is really emblematic of what you do. This is hollyhocks and rosemaries, and we should say that rosemary is, well, which rosemary is it? Is it brush?
That's Rosemary Thompson in workshops in Rosemary and Co. Brushes.
Okay, so brush, that's brush rosemary. So British hollyhocks look the same as American hollyhocks.
They do look the same. And those are painted, that was a plein air painting, finished when I got home in my studio. I went outside, I think, twice to work on that right outside her house. So. All
right, now, so you say it was finished at home. Like how far do you carry it in the plein air setting, and then what do you still have to do when you get home?
My goal in the plein air setting is that when I go home, I don't have any problems like, what the heck am I going to do now, or how am I going to finish it? So I make sure I get my light, and I make sure sometimes it's the composition isn't even that important. Actually, now that you're asking me the question, I almost think the composition in this one anyway was last. For me, what I needed to get in this was the light and the feeling of the depth.
Right.
Because as I was standing there was this whole row going way back. But actually, the composition, I remember I had difficulty working it out, and that is what I did at home. I had limited time working over there. Maybe it was two-hour sessions, and I did get a lot done, but it just got so hot and the sun was moving too much. So I figured I would kind of make up the composition when I got home.
Okay.
Plus, I know those flowers.
Right. So what did you do? How is your hand evident in the composition? What did you do to build the composition?
Placing my darks really carefully. You can see the If I point to it, I can't point to it.
No, unfortunately, we
No,
can't.
that's all right. I don't know. The top large white hollyhock, if you
Yeah.
see there's a real dark next to it.
Yep.
So that's a placed edge, an edge where I knew, and then the edge comes around and follows the next one. So I'm making sure that my darks are following a path going all the way down, making sure that the placement of the hollyhocks in the back aren't catching your attention from the ones in the front, that they really are going to sit back. The leaves, I've designed the leaves. I can see there's an archway of the leaves. On the left, 3/4 down on the left, there's a large leaf. And
Right.
it kind of makes a circle going up. So there's so many things that I'm thinking of. And like I said, this was very difficult because I didn't have good I didn't have good photos that I could work. I could never have done this from a photograph at home. Never. So, there was too much of a jumble and too many light flashes here and there, and to learn that, it's so interesting. I have this conversation actually with Daniel Keyes, that we're all good friends, and he said he doesn't stress composition at all when he teaches, because he feels it's so personal, and I kind of agree with him. It's so personal what you see, and for a teacher to set up a composition for a student, it's what I see, and I don't know that anybody else is actually going to enjoy painting it. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Right. Well, look, the composition of the still life, or the composition of the painting itself, which
the painting itself, how it winds up.
okay.
Because as much time as I take with a still life, for example, to set it up and thinking it's all perfect, it's always ends with the painting. If something didn't work, of course I'm going to change it.
Right. Well, I think that's very telling. What you are saying about that, you're putting your darks, the darkest darks are juxtaposed with the lightest lights. Not always, but that is something you're conscious of. You said you were very careful about where you put your darks, and that is what makes the eye travel successful through the painting. And it is fascinating because we, as a viewer, we can't see that exact, batch of hollyhocks, but it needs to convince us that that was an actual moment in time. And you are manipulating. That is not a literal painting, but it has the story truth as opposed to the literal truth, which makes it appear more truthful, because you worked carefully at where your darks are in relation to the lights. Now, we have here Carol Arnold, who asked. Carol is another Putney painter, of course. Can you talk about how you handle the color as the flowers and the leaves recede?
She's not allowed to ask questions because her questions are way too hard for me to answer.
Give it a whirl. Give it a whirl.
Well, as we know, the brightest, clearest, most saturated color will come forward, and the more muted, grayed down, if not necessarily the color gray, will recede. So the ones all the way in the back on the upper left, I have a lot of the background color, I think, mixed into them to make them recede.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that the answer?
Yeah, that's the answer. The other thing I wanted to ask about that, though, is, do you mix up a pot of what you think are your dominant colors for a composition like this, or are you mixing a small amount on your palette each time as you are working through?
I don't mix up a pot. I do it as I go, and I don't actually mix colors. I do a lot of, here's this color and this color, and they're next to each other and they're sorted together. And then when I mush my brush into it, I come out with different colors there. Unless, of course, it's an area like maybe the edge of the flower where I really want it to be clean, clear, whatever the word is that I'm putting in there.
Now, Geraldine, do you ever sketch with gouache? Do you ever work with gouache?
I've worked with gouache, but no, I don't sketch with gouache. I don't draw first unless it's something with some kind of a structure, or I'm looking around my room right now. I don't see anything with any structures. But, maybe if I have a couple of teacups, I'm not very good with ellipses. I have to, I might draw that out, usually with just charcoal though. And then I'll just smudge it off a little bit.
But like for this one, for this Hollyhocks at Rosemary's, you just started working on the surface.
Yes, well, anybody that's studied with me knows that I totally tone my canvas first, and then pull out with a paper towel, which I got from our old friend Dennis Sheehan. I've been doing that. It's working with a tonal surface, which harmonizes the painting immediately once you have one tone over the whole painting. And then I pull out with a paper towel where I'm going to have my lightest lights, basically.
Right.
Or when I want to get some really, really clean color for a flower that I want the color to really be beautiful, I'll get right down to the white surface. But I'm still not really drawing. If it's a mass of flowers, I might just wipe out the whole mass. I'm not doing circles, circle.
This seems to me very celebratory of Schmid. It has that same kind of lavish romanticism.
Thank you.
It's another beautiful composition. And given what you just were talking about earlier, talk a bit about how you approach the edges, because, and if I can point out to the viewer, on the dominant flower, the flower that's basically as close to dead center of this painting as there is, the right-hand side of that flower goes lighter, and the edge is very, very sharp compared to, say, the greater light-dark juxtaposition of the top of that same flower against the darkest dark. That edge is a little bit softer than the edge in the foreground on that. So, I mean, you are very, very carefully considering what your edges are doing. Is that the special sauce? Is that the magic of how you make florals work? Because I've never been able to do a floral worth a good gosh darn.
Well, it's hard to paint a flower all brown when they're all in brown.
Right.
Or black. Let's start with that. I'm certainly really aware of where I'm allowing edges to be prominent. Once in a while, I get so caught up with the painting of a particular flower, I suddenly see the entire flower, or whatever it is you're painting, has an edge, a hard edge going all around. And I always say to students, too many edges, it becomes too, botanical, or that's not a nice word, I guess. Too many edges is too photographic, right. And too few edges is just too mushy. So you have to find that balance. And if I see, like my hardest edge on that, you're talking about the one that's right in the middle of the nasturtium, is I guess on the right side with the light-ish edge on it. So I don't know how to answer the question, quite frankly. Yes. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of where my edges are going to be going throughout. And if I see one that needs to be softened, you don't have to always soften it with a brush. You can soften it with another color of the same value next to it, like I've done with some of the red against the blues or against the greens.
Well, that to me, I think that's one of the things people don't think about that much. People think they got to get their drawing right and they got to get the colors right. And people do not think about the importance of edges nearly enough, because hey, that's what you are a ninja at, is these edges, the juxtaposition of the the ongoing, sharp against soft. I mean, that is how you are primarily moving the viewer. That's how I feel like you are a master at manipulating the viewer. Put it that way.
Right. So when you think about trying to teach that, I don't really know that it's a concept that can be taught to a beginning student. Maybe it's you can see it when it's wrong, and that's, I think, the best you can strive for at the when you're starting to learn. But even when you're in the middle on your path to whatever the path is, uh, you can you start to be able to see it. You start to see. You know what? The best way to when I'm teaching, the best thing I do is when I'm not flying someplace, I take all Richard's books with me wherever I go, because you can point it out there, or just look at work and get in museums, and you can point it out and say, you see how this was done, and you see how if he didn't lose that edge, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I mean, but if you look at just the difference between, look at the flower on the flower on the extreme right hand side. That is the leaf on the extreme right hand side.
You're talking about when I'm looking at the painting.
When we're looking at the computer screen, the leaf on the extreme right hand side in the middle there.
Right. So that has an edge going all around.
It has an edge going around, but it's a soft edge. It's not against another leaf or against a flower.
Right.
And it would be very easy for you to have put a hard edge on that, but you're not wanting that to be the center of attention. So you're very consciously softening those edges. Yeah.
I was going to say, that's why the left side of the vase has more of a hard edge and the right side does not.
Right. Right. See? Yeah, that's true. I hadn't noticed that. Ninja, you're a ninja, and then you got that red. Now, Sonia asks, Sonia was a student of mine recently at a workshop I did, and when she started the workshop, her name wasn't Sonia, and she changed it to Sonia partway through. Very mysterious. But anyway, she asked, no, it's not true. Her name was Sonia. I just hadn't gotten it through my head. So how many sessions would a painting like this be?
Okay, so first of all, when you start painting flowers, you have to understand that they don't last. So I'll set something like this up and I'll paint for maybe 2 or 3 hours. The next day and then I really, really, really try to remember always to take a good photo used for just the drawing purposes. The next day it'll look sort of like this. I can't remember whether I had the luxury of working on this consecutive days until it was finished. That doesn't really happen for me very often because the next flowers are blooming so fast and the next. So I probably spent maybe 2 or 3 sessions on this before it was hopelessly dead and smelled like a swamp in here. and then I have my good photo. And then because this was part of my show, which was an enormous undertaking, so I probably put the painting aside because I was far enough that I didn't need the subject anymore. I could always go out in my yard, pick another nasturtium and just move it around, if I wanted. I don't need it to be in the right light and the right, I don't need any of that anymore. It's so important to get all the information you need. Color, believe it or not, is the least important to me, believe it or not. As long as it's as Nancy will say, a pretty color. It should be a pretty color. But I don't worry about the color at first. I worry about the values and I worry about the light, and that's about it. And then as much as the drawing as I can do from life.
Right.
But then I probably put the painting aside, and because the next thing was blooming. I had my show was seasons, so I had to get like all the spring while spring was going. So and then I pulled it out and then I either finished it using some of the photo reference or just my memory or that sort of thing.
But that's also because you have painted many, many, many flowers, so you basically know the
I
vocabulary.
know it so well,
Right.
exactly.
So, and this show is in October. It was at the National Arts Club in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and it was how many pieces was it?
46.
46. My goodness, what led you to do something insane like that?
Well, because I figured it was time for me to have a solo show. I thought I had one in 2009 was my last, but I pulled out my old guest book because I used the same guest book, and it was actually 2005.
Really?
It was at the National Arts Club. I've had like 2-person shows, but and I've been obviously a lot of group shows, but I don't know. I just had this idea that I wanted to do it, and I've had the idea. I remember Everett Kinsler was still alive when I had the idea, and he's been gone for about three years now. But I just had the idea of just going through the seasons with, and it turned out to be way more. I mean, all of a sudden I finished fall and I had like 9 paintings, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I have 9 or 10 for each. That's already 40 paintings. So it was.
Wow.
It turned out I had more in the spring and summer. It was an interesting venture. I should give a seminar on how I did it.
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
I remember
47 paintings. It's insane. So L. Drake asks, so no sketches. How do you select the composition? Do you do a few thumbnails to work it out first, generally speaking? Or maybe some gestural sketches? Or maybe because you've been doing this for so long that you know your way around? I mean,
well, first of all, no real sketches. Lately, actually, I take that back. Lately, sometimes I rough out something with charcoal quickly, and then I just wipe it all out. And then because just the act of drawing very loose with the charcoal puts it in my head, and I could just wipe that off. But for the most part, I think it's just something in my personality. I don't like to prepare for things. I just, there's something to me about it's just a weird thing. If I prepare, like I don't know how I could be an actress. I could be one a la prima, I guess. But if I have to prepare and think about it, then I don't want to do it again. Oh, that brings me right back to not being able to do a large painting from a plein air sketch. I don't want to do it a second time. So I don't want to rehearse or practice or anything. But so how do I set something like this out? Very, very carefully from life. I'm setting it up very, very carefully from life and trying to work out all my problems on my still life stand.
and so do you know, like the fact that the teacup is offset and the blue flowers, I'm not a flower person. I'm good at vegetables, but not flowers. But the blue flowers over there are cascading off the right-hand side foreground, and the rest of the flowers are basically a triangular or rectangular shape that are that reach out to the borders. Are you thinking about that as you're setting it up, or are you just looking at the basic interplay and then worrying about the corners of the painting plane once you get going?
Well, if I looked at all my still lifes that are around, they almost always go off the page, so to speak. It's just that's what I like things going off the page.
Mm-hmm.
I also love to utilize leaves and stems to once again to move you around the painting. But like I said, I love irregularity. I don't like things to be, flower here, so one here, and then one has to be here. You know what I mean? So I like things to be some are frontward, some are backwards, some are, falling petals, or
Right.
It probably comes back to once again, like I said, being a gardener too, and I know what they look like naturally, and that's the only way I really like them.
Right, right. And you do that very well in that it is so easy to do repetitive shapes, especially with
Mhm.
something like a plant. And you avoid that trap really masterfully. So
Thank you.
um, tell us about this.
That was with Jake Gadke. You know Jake, of course.
You do.
And I forgot who else was with us. He took me away. It was outside Bozeman, and this was our reunion from the Rocky Mountain Plein Air Painters. Our last time we got together, and that's what I painted. That is, I would say 98% from life. The only thing I did when I got home, I think I added more of those little white wildflowers in the front.
In the foreground.
And it's the first time I used a lot of palette knife on those trees. But God, I love that. I just love painting out there in the mountains, and I love those plein air shows. I can't really do them anymore. I don't have it in me, but to be out in the mountains and I always feel like I'm really earning my painting because it's so
Uh-huh.
it's so hard. It's right.
Right. Well, I mean, no, there is a real joy in the fact of earning the painting as opposed to
Mhm.
it just being uh
Just being out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But as far as was this scene exactly like you're seeing it here? Probably not. I was careful to make. You can see from the lower right corner, I have like a path
Yes, you do.
and going in. Who knows if that was really there? I don't remember. But
Right. Yeah. And so the browns serve serve the role as the escort for the viewer
exactly.
into the shaded area and then into that bright area and back.
Right.
You're very good at moving the eye along.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. This was one of my favorite. I actually painted this in the barn at Putney. I gathered. Actually, the photograph doesn't look so clear at the top. Actually, I have the painting here. Um, yeah, maybe it is the same. I just gathered a bunch of fall leaves from outside and put them on the table in Putney and set this up. And actually, this painting has a little bit of a funny story to it because it's right behind me. I sat for 2 weeks looking at it. I was in New York for the whole 2 weeks of my show. And I kept looking at it and I saw there's something wrong with that ellipse on that saucer. And I stared at it forever. So where is this? If you can
Mhm.
see, when I came home, I put a leaf over the saucer because I tried to fix the ellipse so many times. I finally said, ah.
Hold it up one more time. Let me see. Do it one more time on the saucer. Yep. Works great.
I also did this
Yeah.
tiny little indication of the plate, the rest of the plate over here. But there's,
All right.
I looked at that for 2 weeks, and
Once they start to drive you crazy, they're going to drive you crazy until you do something with them. This is a beautiful lyrical painting, and it reminds me both, of course, of Richard and also of Nancy Guzik's work.
thank you. One of the things I'll just say that Richard used to talk about was stems. He said he loved stems. It was such a perfect tool for direction. And make sure you don't make the whole stem green, or if all you have to do is look at his books and see the way a stem would have 4 colors, as he painted.
Even though it reads as one passage, it has
right.
four. Right. It's not just a uniform thing. Right. Excellent.
Oh, I have to say, this is one of my favorite paintings. About 3 years ago, I pulled into my driveway, and that's what I saw. And I took photos that were just gorgeous. And this year, or last year, I guess it was, I waited. I waited until I could paint it from life because I'm not a snow painter for the most part, although I did have a whole winter section that was all snow painting. So I guess I'm a snow painter now. But I waited until this winter, this past last year, and we finally had snow, and I pulled into the driveway and saw it was almost the same. So I painted. Actually, this is going to just completely negate everything I said earlier. But I did a small painting like this big of that exact same scene, and
it does negate what you said earlier. But
so, this is the trouble with being recorded, where you actually see what somebody says. I think some of our maybe politicians need to remember that things are recorded and you can actually see what they're saying. Okay, so I don't take it back because I'm not going to take it back. I'll make excuses for myself. I was so excited about this photograph for years that I started this painting, and I think I would I remember putting the study over on the side, working from the photograph, and then I would glance over at it real quick just to say, because the little study came out really, really good. I really liked it. It's different than this, but the color in this, plus the fact that this is the first time I started really using Michael Harding's Pyroline Violet, and oh my God, do I love that color now. I think he really owes me, because he's probably got 100 people that have bought that color, because I can't stop talking about it. But hi Jill. What was the question?
The question is just saying hi.
Hi.
And she loves that painting. So you keep.
I love this painting. I have it upstairs. I think I'm going to hang on to it for a while.
Really? Do you have certain paintings that you say, no, I'm not getting rid of that one, I'm keeping that one?
Yeah, I do. Some of them, actually, that highlight reservoir from Bozeman, I put in the show kind of at the last minute, because I said, oh, I think I want to put a couple of, I put that one and another one of my favorite paintings I put in thinking nobody would buy them, and because they're landscapes, and I don't sell a ton of landscapes, but I sold both of them. That was a little sad.
A little sad to see him go.
Yeah.
Well, this again, note how she brings the viewer into the tumult of the quince bush, but through the lower right hand, the very directing, the declivities in the snow, the kind of, and the thing that's interesting to me is that those declivities in the lower right are much more kind of a grayed out chroma, because it's like leading the viewer in, and then it goes boom, ba-dum, it's like the big crescendo of all that beautiful reddish browns against the violet and the snow. Very beautiful.
Thanks. I can't honestly say I thought that, but
don't you? No. Just smile and nod. Just smile and nod, Kathy.
Oh, look what you put in! Oh, you're reminding me. It's almost time for them to come in the house.
Yeah. Now, so this is a purely sentimental, romantic expression of joy.
Yes.
And this is the two cats. Yeah. And was this last year's Christmas card, or was it just?
Yes, it was last year's Christmas card. Obviously done from a photograph, but obviously I have those models, although little Daisy's not a kitten anymore. But look at them.
Daisy and Paco.
Daisy and Paco. And that was actually, out of the 46 paintings, 3 were not for sale, and 2 were cats that belonged to our kids. I gave this one to Chris.
Yeah, and once again, even in something as playful, and obviously this is not a serious artistic statement painting, but again,
yes, it is.
Cats, Christmas ornaments.
Oh, come on.
Anyway, but the edges, even in something like this, I mean, your command of what you're doing, the edges, is so evident, especially with the Paco is the black and white one, right?
Yeah, the bigger one.
Um, so Paco's nose and mouth area, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's that is so defined, and then in the lower right, you just that's not where the subject matter is. You just let it go. And Wedler Fine Arts is interesting how the edges disappear on the bottom right. So,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
That's what somebody looks like they just said. Yeah, because that. Why do you need that? You don't need that.
Right. That's not what the song is about.
Right. It's about that little nose.
Yeah, the little nose. That little nose. Yeah. Yeah. This I love because I as a teenager used to swim at Buttermilk Falls because
Did you really?
that's outside Ludlow, where
Me
you
too.
have your house. And this again, the composition on this, the way the viewer's eye climbs up through the central passage of this into the forest, I think is wonderful. But
And that was definitely contrived by me. It was obviously not.
L. Jake says, "Thank you for legitimizing the painting of cats."
But this was definitely a plein air piece. I painted it with some of our fellow Putney painters, Susan Jositis and Nancy Howell. We were out there at Buttermilk Falls in the snow. It was not a freezing cold day, but it was a cold day.
Right. And it's a little bit of a hike in. So, I mean.
Yeah, you have to go down. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just park and it's not a park and paint situation.
No.
So, and this is a plein air piece.
Yes.
So this is, and that also is interesting juxtaposition if one looks at the studio pieces where the sharpness of the edges is, I mean, this has sharp edges, but it does have a brushier vocabulary that you're using.
That comes from being freezing.
And then this one, was this also part of the show?
This was each season had one very large painting and like 4 or 5 or something medium, and then a bunch of small. That was what the way I conceived the whole thing. But this is one of the large one for spring is also a plein air piece. I started this out in my garden, and I was out there, I think maybe 3 or 4 times. I took that giant canvas, and every night I had one of those giant Gloucester easels that I use rarely, and every night I dragged it back into the garage and left it there. And none of the peonies stay the same the next day. The poppies in the back were already gone, so I just made those up, and I had a couple of poppies here and there. And so every day I'd go out there and just pick different peonies because I knew where it was going to be. I started it the same way. I toned the whole canvas with a dark brown green, tone, which is the background, the harmony for the painting, which is all the earth tones. And then I wiped out where I wanted to put the peonies. Lots of photos, crappy photos, I could never have really, I don't know if I could have done the painting. But then the rest of it, like most of the stone and most of the leaves in the middle, that was all done in the studio. But the peonies were almost all of the peonies were done out in the garden.
Out in the garden, where the little differentiation of light is so important.
Exactly. Right.
Fascinating. Wow, I can't imagine. That would drive me so crazy so fast. And then last, we have the Punchline. Now, what? This is from your safari?
It was. I knew I wanted to do a lion painting so badly. By the way, Stephanie Birdsall's now husband gave me the title, the Punchline, because he thought, and it was so funny because one of the times he was over here, when I was nearly done with it, and he said, "Can I make a comment?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "All the lions' mouths are open. They're all, like they're laughing." And that's where he got the title from. And I said to him, it's funny that you said that, because obviously this is from photos. And I thought about that as I was beginning the painting. The three lions are from one photo, and the other one is from another photo. And this is winter, by the way, when we were there. So that's why everything's so tonal. But I thought about the same thing. Oh, because you're not supposed to have things the same or whatever.
Right.
Whatever rule I was breaking with having all of their mouths open. But I just decided I loved it so much because they were all like gabbing. Because
Right.
one of our safaris, there was like 30. That's where these photos are from. There was like 30 lions all around us.
Really?
Just wandering around, and us in an open jeep. So, I mean, these are from our photographs. I don't know if it's mine or John's, but
Right.
I love this painting. I might keep this. My son Chris said he said you can't sell it. I have to have that painting. So
That's great.
anyway.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Thanks for the tour through your work. And I mean, I think it's just such a wonderful. That little portfolio is just such a wonderful example of someone who paints from a place of love. And I think that that really comes through in your work. I mean, some of it is really carefully observed. Some of it is almost whimsical, but it all is suffused with a real joy and appreciation of being alive, it seems to me.
It's true. It really is. Yeah.
So
yeah, stick to yourself, everybody. Stick to what you love.
Right. Now it seems that you do. You showed a number of galleries. We were talking about that before. You show in Scottsdale, in Madison, Connecticut, in Charleston, South Carolina, in Sheridan, Wyoming, in Phillipsburg, Montana, and in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And you did a solo show this last year. And you do teaching. That's a lot. That's a lot, Anderson.
Why'd you have to put it like that? Now I'm tired.
But what do you have coming up in 2025? You're teaching at Scottsdale.
I'm doing the usual places. I find that I'm cutting back on workshops a little bit, but there are places that I love so much. Scottsdale is one of the top. Landgrove Inn is the top. I'm also teaching at the Kinsler Studios. My friend Peggy Kinsler, and
where is that?
That's right here in Easton, the next town over from me.
Oh, great!
Okay. Everett Raymond Kinsler's studio. She hosts workshops, and also the Booth Museum in Indiana.
So. Oh, awesome! Okay, so if people are interested, I mean, I think getting the opportunity to study with you you're one of the real through lines with Richard Schmid's approach to florals and composition. So, well, Wedler Fine Art asks, what is your teaching style? What is your teaching style, Kathy Anderson?
What?
Shame and humiliation?
Exactly. Yes. Hoping that people don't find out that I don't really know anything. Trying to bluff my way through.
I think that's probably so untrue. I can say, having watched Kathy do demos and things, I think her teaching style is one of infectious joy. So we'll leave it at that. So Kathy Anderson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Charlie, so much for asking me. This really has been very nice. It's always nice to talk to you and have the pleasure of your company. Always.
Right. Well, we are going to say goodbye, and we'll be back next week, ladies and gentlemen, with some more reasonably fine art talk. We've got a number of fascinating people coming up, and I've got to show everybody what I've been doing with the encaustics recently. So, Kathy, you take good care. Everyone out there in internet land, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Charlie. Onward. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.